So the Max Verstappen to Mercedes rumours are not going anywhere. First George opened up in a Sky Sports interview, then Toto gave some pretty cryptic responses to media when asked. So what exact game is Toto Wolff playing here? Is it a win-win for him regardless, or is he at risk of things kind of blowing up in his face? George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, Max Verstappen 3 can't go into 2, can they? My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. Look, I think the best place to start, the most apt place to start, is that George Russell is absolutely killing it, and the fact that his seat is in any kind of question is crazy, really. Like, he is arguably driver of the season so far this year. We've had 11 rounds, a couple of sprints as well. Like, George Russell's been incredible. For him to be anywhere near this championship fight, McLaren really did kind of put their foot down in Austria and prove, look, you know what, we've kind of made some tinkerings to this car. You ain't catching us. And fair enough, but George has been unbelievable in a Mercedes car that on its day is great, but as soon as those temps kick up, as soon as that track abrasion becomes a factor, you know, that's where the performance falls off. Yet he still continues to deliver at such a high level. You shouldn't have to worry, but then neither should have Carlos Sainz when he was at Ferrari and doing absolute bits and being a superb support act to Charles Leclerc, beating him on his day, keeping him honest, but not really upsetting the apple cart too much. So should Sergio Perez when he was at Racing Point, beating Lance week in, week out, delivering fantastic podiums, winning that race at Sakir. He shouldn't have had anything to worry about either until he should. You know, that's the way F1 works sometimes. Just because you're doing fantastic things for your team does not guarantee your seat when there are other factors at play. With Sainz, it was Lewis becoming available. I mean, we always believed, maybe dreamt it was going to happen, and as soon as the opportunity opened up, they made it happen. And with Sergio, it's, you know, Sebastian Vettel coming on the market, Lawrence Stroll rebranding that team to Aston Martin and wanting that big high-profile name. A 4-time World Championship winner is exactly that, something that Checo wasn't. The game's the game, right? And yes, is George Russell perfect? No, he is not. He has a mistake in him, but I would say in the same way that Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen at various points of their careers have been known for having mistakes in them, they've ironed them out, and I think George has been unbelievable this year. Like, I think he is at that place where you give him the car and he will fight for world titles.
Well, from my side, I don't have anything really to worry about. I'm performing as I'm doing. What have I got to be concerned about? There's two seats in every Formula 1 team.
Unfortunately for George, as soon as he joined Mercedes, was ground effect era, where that team completely fell off a cliff. I always wonder if 2021 had been Lewis and George, how would that have played out? That would have been fascinating. If they'd have promoted him a year earlier, that would have been fascinating. But anyway, look, George, 27 years of age, plenty of years ahead of him, seems to be primarily focused and interested in Formula 1 as a motorsport discipline. Also is head of the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association. I don't see him going anywhere. I see him invested in the sport as a driver for as long as they can get out of him. Basically, I see him going way into his 30s, late 30s, maybe even early 40s, and after that I see him sticking around as some kind of position, FIA or something. I could absolutely see that future for George Russell. But in terms of a race seat, I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. And as for the noise, the speculation about Max Verstappen, you know, George has very much taken it within his stride. If it is affecting him negatively, he's not showing it. I think this is fine. I don't think it's actually getting in his head at all. I don't think it's affecting his performances. If it is affecting his performances, maybe it's affecting them in a positive way, because he's not doing much negative at the moment on track. You know, if it is doing anything, then it's working, clearly. But this is George Russell, a kid with experience. He's been in the sport since 2019, which is not what can be said for his teammate. I mean, God forbid Kimi Antonelli in 2019 was probably still in the womb. He is incredibly raw, is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. We've seen it. We saw it most recently in Austria, a big mistake. We've seen some incredible moments from Kimi, haven't we? The Miami sprint pole doesn't happen by accident. Canada in the race followed George the entire way round, did a stupendous job, almost got P2 ahead of Max, P3 in the end, podium, lovely jubbly. You can absolutely chalk up a lot of the errors and the mistakes and the race pace delta behind George at times as being fundamental rookie errors that Mercedes would have been expecting, should have been expecting. No one hits the ground running. You might have one lap pace. A rookie can come in and deliver a lap. Boom, right? They can do that. But in terms of managing a set of Pirellis over a distance, communicating with your race engineer, racing wheel to wheel with some of the most experienced, talented Formula One drivers, racing drivers of all time, right? To be able to do that straight out the gates at 18 years of age, it's not going to happen. And we've seen all of the rookies this year come up against their fair share of hurdles. But you have to say, I think George Russell, as hurdles go, is probably the highest hurdle any rookie is facing this year. I mean, outside of that Red Bull second seat, I would say going in alongside George Russell at Mercedes, replacing Lewis Hamilton, has to be the next most challenging, difficult hurdle. Now, of course, I think Hülkenberg is fantastic for Bortoleto. Hadjar had Tsunoda and was fairly close to him, and now is pretty consistently better than Lawson. Behrman, I think, has a very, very capable driver in Esteban Ocon alongside him. I know a lot of you don't rate him. I think Ocon's great. I think he's really good for Ollie's development, and they're pretty close. Ollie's holding himself well. But George is Mr. Saturday, right? And we're seeing it in the average deltas. It's the second biggest delta on the grid, of course, behind Verstappen and Tsunoda. Between Russell and Antonelli, it's, 0.312 according to my stats that I'm keeping track of as the season goes by. So look, put yourself into Andrea Kimi Antonelli's shoes for a second, okay? You can see your teammate George Russell is doing incredible things, right? And he's a great guy to look up to and learn from and develop and progress. You just turned 18, you're having a few stinkers, you're having a couple of good results as well, but it's not been amazing as a totality, I guess. And again, I'm looking at the other rookies to try and draw parallels and not be too harsh. There's been amazing moments, there's been bad moments. It's very fair to say. And then you hear about the speculation and Toto Wolff addressing it.
Tentative conversations with Max's people, is that the best way to understand it? Maybe the future beyond next year, potentially?
Yeah, I think it's also a long-term perspective and to understand what is the framework that you're operating under. No more, no less.
George is the same age as Max. George is doing an amazing job, has arguably been even better than Max this year. I would not be at all surprised if all of this speculation, all of this talk, all of these rumours, is that stuff going to play on his mind? I think it might. I don't care how much Toto Wolff could be like, I'm around Kimi, you're fine, you're here for the future. But you're entertaining Max Verstappen, and my teammate is driving at as high a level as anyone else in this sport right now. This is where, for me, it feels almost a bit, I don't know what the word is, careless, maybe, from Toto. He seemed to make a long-term commitment to his two drivers very recently by putting Kimi in that seat at all, rather than going with a temporary stopgap solution to then maybe see if someone else opens up later on. And the Max Mercedes rumours are not a new thing. If Toto had any inclination that he was going to put Max in the car, promoting Kimi, because Max Verstappen, rightfully, can't be ignored, can he? Like, he could actually be the greatest of all time. We are seeing him deliver a level of performance within a golden generation of drivers. He's got the fear factor over others, he's got the prowess over a lap, he's got the racecraft, and he's got the dark side when he needs it. He's got the time management, he's got the consistency lap after lap after lap after lap. Like, he's got the clutch gene. What doesn't Max have? Okay, he is the totality of what a fierce, determined, dedicated competitor looks like. And he's primarily motivated by winning. Now, Red Bull have given him a package for a very, very long time. And even prior to, Red Bull ground effect domination, he was always winning races in that Red Bull behind the, engine dominant Mercedes of the turbo hybrid era. Max has always been up there. He's always been able to win Grand Prix. He's always been able to get into other people's heads and deliver on track. If things move back towards Mercedes for this next, 50-50, not so much ground effect generation, whatever you want to call it, and Mercedes becomes a more competitive package, then of course Max should be open to moving elsewhere. I said before, I say it again, I think it makes sense for him to stay put for the time being, see the lay of the land in 2026. He will maximise whatever Red Bull will give him. So he will know, right, you give me a car in 26, I will show you the absolute ceiling of where that car can go. And if that ceiling is P5, P6, P3, P4, okay, P2 at a push, maybe he might stay. But anywhere other than P1, he can look at the lay of the land, see, right, where are Mercedes, where are Alpine, where are Williams, where are these teams, McLaren, who are running Mercedes power units? Cool. Maybe Audi blow everyone out of the water. Maybe Ferrari. Maybe Ferrari actually for once nail it. Teams can come up to Max right now and be like, oh yeah, well, our engine's developing this much power. And then this, well, no, our engine's developing this much power. Blah, 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 right? It's all just words at the minute. We're actually not actually seeing performance on track. We will do in testing in 26, race 1 in 26, race 24 in 26. Then Max will know the lay of the land. Then he can make an educated decision on which team is right for him. I think he will stick for 26. I don't see why he wouldn't, because there is the risk you move to Mercedes for 26 and actually Mercedes completely drop out of their rear ends, and actually Red Bull, great. It's unlikely, but stranger things have definitely happened. But then what I would question from a Max to Mercedes point of view, from Toto's perspective anyway, is Max in it for the long term? Like, he's got this contract till 28. He's spoken quite openly about what he wants to do outside of Formula 1. He doesn't see himself in F1 till his 40s like a Fernando Alonso, and fair play to him. You know, the motorsport world to Max Verstappen is much bigger than Formula 1. If Toto's going to drop either Kimi or George, these two incredible, one incredible potential, one already right now incredible talents for Max, and only get a couple of seasons out of him, is there really much point? Like, is that really a valuable payoff by giving one of your top talents of the moment to a direct competitor in order to get Max for a couple of years? Would the Mercedes culture fit Max Verstappen, right? Max has been at that Red Bull team for his entire, Red Bull family, should I say, for his entire F1 career. George feels like a perfect fit for the Mercedes setup, the culture that we see, the feeling. You know, Red Bull is very different to Mercedes, and George and Max feel very at home, respectively, right? Regardless of on-track performance, of what those teams actually feel like they are. But there's no guarantee you swap them two around that it would equally work. Maybe it would. Maybe they would adapt to their environments, but maybe they wouldn't. And we know Max works in the Red Bull environment. We know George works in the Mercedes environment. Look, Toto Wolff is ultimately responsible for the most dominant period in Mercedes Formula 1 history, the turbo hybrid era. And he is also responsible for this pretty substantial drop-off, where they've probably been on average the fourth quickest team of the ground effect era, which by Mercedes standards is not good enough, especially when one of those teams ahead of them is a customer team in McLaren. So he will be desperate to see that marquee return to the top for both him as a shareholder, Jim Ratcliffe as a shareholder, and Daimler as a shareholder. I completely understand why, of course, you would consider Max Verstappen, because he is the best driver in Formula 1 at the moment, arguably the greatest driver of all time, certainly in the most competitive generation, I would argue, of all time, and he's, you know, been head and shoulders at times above the rest. But then where does that leave Kimi and George? What is the knock-on effect, I guess? Because look, when you replace Carlos Sainz with Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, that is a upgrade in terms of what we know those drivers can deliver at their peaks. Okay, Lewis Hamilton at his peak, arguably once again the greatest to ever do it. Carlos Sainz at his peak, very, very good, like able to out-qualify Charles Leclerc, able to win Grand Prix on merit, racing IQ Singapore 23, right? He's had his moments for sure, but Lewis is an upgrade. Yet the transition of environment from Lewis away from Mercedes, a team that had been for a very, very long time, we've not seen the best out of him. It's taken a lot of time. It was pretty good in Austria, but it's still off of Charles Leclerc. And I don't think we're going to be seeing him beating Charles Leclerc consistently at any point during his time at Ferrari, to be honest. And then Sainz has gone to Williams, a very different environment to Ferrari, and is fumbling hard right now. Like, it's really not going well for him. Nowhere near as well as everyone, myself included, expected it would. I thought it'd be a slow start, but this is like a snail, mate. And look, of course, Max is a huge name, a huge marquee, four-time F1 world champion, massive Orange Army Dutch fan base, much more cult following than George Russell and Kimi Antonelli for obvious reasons. I mean, in terms of fit, look, if George becomes available and they want to run Max and Kimi going forward, look, Chuck George in Aston Martin, that is seamless as you like. George would love to race for Aston Martin. He could fully embrace the tweed. And look, if they get rid of Kimi, I'm sure Ferrari will come calling, right? Give Ollie Behrman something to think about, who's going to be the next in line for Lewis's seat. It just perplexes me that Toto is so willing to consider Max so openly when he made a driver decision in Kimi Antonelli replacing Lewis Hamilton that absolutely solidified, right, this is my driver pairing for the present and the future. George is already there and absolutely as good as any new generation driver coming through. Kimi is the next generation after that. Boom, sorted, happy days, don't have to think about it. Yet right now, we're more than just thinking about it. We are getting confirmation from George, confirmation from Toto, essentially, that they are having talks. Question is Toto allowing his frustration around not originally signing Max back in the day and his desperation for Kimi to be his regen blind him to the generational talent he already has on his hands? Max is more talented than George, but there's no guarantee he'd be a better fit for Mercedes than George. This way it's all panned out just feels a bit counterintuitive to me. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you're watching Toto, chuck it down in the comments, yeah, I'd appreciate that. And while you're down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos just like this. My name's Tomo, thanks again, have a good one, ta-da.